Hey, it's Eric G. Around the House is sponsored by Baldwin Hardware. For 75 years, Baldwin Hardware has been known for its first-class quality and craftsmanship in door and cabinetry hardware. As an alumnus of the Baldwin Hardware Design Council, I can say I have seen the details and quality from design to the finished product. If you're looking for a new style and old-world craftsmanship, I can tell you there is only one Baldwin Hardware. Check out what would look great in your home at baldwinhardware.com.
Get you on the radio, yeah, you gotta get on the radio. It doesn't take a lot of time.
You gotta get on the radio. Welcome to Around the House with Eric G. This is where typically we talk home improvement every single Saturday. Then, of course, I do my midweek special, but this one here is kind of a special event. This is where I've kind of teamed up with 2020 Design. Now, 2020 Design out there is my favorite design program I use. There's only really a couple that work really well for designing in kitchen and bathrooms. So I've teamed up with them to come up with some best practices that I've used over the nearly 20 years of being a kitchen and bath designer. So this is for all you guys out there that are industry professionals in the design industry that specialize in kitchen and bath design. If you're using 2020, this has been my foolproof way to make sure that you communicate what you're trying to do to your client, to the remodeler, to the builder, and whoever out there is going to be using or installing the cabinetry of the spaces you're going to design. So let's talk about this for a little bit. So I've been in kitchen and bath industry since about 1993, and it's crazy. I have stuck around in it. I've been a certified kitchen designer. I took the test in 1999, been a CKD ever since. And so I have done everything from worked in a home center to owned my own, successful company to turning around companies out there that were failing and getting them turned around and creating processes and procedures to really make them work well. So let's dive into this. I've spent years really studying how to reduce errors and how to create a system that made it easy to communicate what's going on in your head on paper to the installer and to the client. Because you could have the most beautiful design if you've not communicated that right to the cabinet manufacturer that's building these things and the person installing it, you have a disaster on your hands. So let's talk a little bit about building this foolproof system. And really it comes down to kind of documenting without confusion. So let's talk about kind of the basics before we dive into the procedures and how to do this. Paperwork, and that can all be digital, and samples are the key to this program. Your paperwork management process is a key. You need to create templates with your manufacturer catalog. So this is really easy and a little bit harder if you're using just a custom manufacturer. But if you're dealing with one of the many, manufacturers out there that have created a 2020 design catalog and have a spec book, this is so easy to do. So this is what I would recommend that you do to create this process. So these are things you can do without even starting the program. I would go through, and I always use the cloud for this because if you've got one person or 100, if you use the cloud, it works out really well because everyone can share it and use the same stuff. And if you have to update anything like a new catalog update, you can go through and do this once instead of doing it 20 times. So I go through and take the PDF file of the catalog and I cut and paste and create a folder system. You're like, what am I cutting and pasting? Well, here's the thing. I go through and I cut out every door style description and save it by name in the door style folder of the 2020 catalog that you're going to create. So you're going to take a file called 2020 catalogs. You're going to take, let's just use a very common brand name here, Craftmade. Whether you like them or hate them, doesn't matter. I'm just going to use that as an example. So what I do is I take CraftMade and create a folder in my cloud. Then I go down and create a folder called Door Styles. I go through and cut and paste every door style picture and description under the name of the door style and save it in that folder. And I'll tell you why you need that later. I go do the same thing for the cabinet construction picture and description. I do the same thing for moldings, and I do the same thing for trims, accessories, anything in a cabinet that if you put a cabinet box on 2020 in a floor style elevation, if it's not shown in the picture, I cut and paste it and put it in this folder system. I'll call it accessories, I'll call it panels, I'll call it whatever you want to do it. Call it what it is in that. If you're not using the molding, then, right now, if it's something that's out of style in your area or just something you'd never use, then don't put it in there, but go through and do that. Second of all, as I'm creating this, I create my own sign-off template. So if someone's going to sign off on a drawing, you can create it with Word, make it a picture or whatever else you want to do it as a JPEG, or you can do it as a PDF. Create your own stamp that's your unique stamp that's going to go on the drawings. So you're going to create that as well. Now, if you've got a builder, for instance, I've got a remodeler that has their own stamp that they actually stamped their drawings with. It's a red stamp for their sign-offs. Great. I just had them scan a blank stamp of that, and I created it myself so I can put it on every single one of their drawings, and it also fits in with their paperwork process. So it works pretty well, so I'll use that as well. I'm not so worried about getting a client to sign off with my name on it. I want them to approve drawings and specifications and colors and wood species, so we get a signature on everything. So that's kind of the key to the background of getting this stuff set up. Now here's the thing. How do you start the process? So you've kind of created some background foundational stuff by saving all that stuff out of all your catalogs. And if you've got 2 or 3 companies to deal with, you do the same for 2 or 3 companies. You're going to make those specific per brand. If you've got 5 to 7, I'll be honest, if you've got 5 to 7 different cabinet manufacturers, it's my personal opinion, that's a lot. And that creates its own problems within your staff because it's tough for a kitchen and bath designer to know 3 companies really well. It's nearly impossible for them to know 5 to 7 companies really well because so many different people have different specs. And if they're not using that brand enough, they're going to make mistakes and make little mistakes that cost you, the designer, money, and you as the building, as the kitchen and bath business owner, and then the installer and everybody else, it's costing everyone money. So I always say bring in that group and make sure you've got really good partners. So how do you start this process? Well, first of all, I want to make sure that you've got lots of color samples and lots of door samples for this because you're going to need to have those door samples have an initial on the back of it. So if Mr. Smith comes in and buys a kitchen cabinet package from you, and it's a white shaker door with a 2.5-inch style and rail on it, whatever the name of the style and rail description of that brand cabinet door style is, that's fine. But what I'm going to want you to do is part of this process is you're going to get them to sign the back of that door sample. Now, it doesn't matter. You can use this door sample a dozen times. You can glue more paper onto the back of that door sample to put signatures on it. But the secret is that we're going to hold on to these things for a little bit during the order process. So if you have a couple dozen door samples, it's not going to work well. You need to have door samples that work with this. And at the time of order, if you're ordering a door sample for the customer in the door style, wood species, and color with the right edge profile, that is the best case scenario for this. And you know something? It's really easy to drop in the price of every single kitchen a couple $100. It covers those sample costs so you can replace that door sample with another one. So don't be too worried about that. There's easy ways to capture that within the process. So here's what I do. So you're going to start out with your customer or project name with a number. So I'd save everything into the cloud. So I will start out with the builder as a name. So if you've got a remodeling contractor you work for, ABC Construction. I'm just making up a name. So you start out with ABC Construction. Then I would start out with James Smith, your customer name, and then Kitchen 1. So that way you can keep in your folders that you've got ABC Construction. In that folder, in the process of this, you're gonna save James Smith Kitchen 1. That is the first design you do. So you go through that process. You meet with the customer. You go through your normal sales process of whatever works within your system. Every revision gets the next number. So after you meet with James Smith, you turn around and say, okay, well, now we're going from an island to a peninsula. The first thing you do, save as James Smith Kitchen 2. That way, every revision gets the next number. I've had them get up to 18 when you're dealing with clients that are indecisive or you just have a hard time getting them dialed in through the process. It doesn't matter. Now, there's 2 reasons why this works well. One, it saves every rendition of the project so you can see how things worked. And this can be it can be really nice when you're working with that client, because when you turn around and maybe you've already explored that option and they said no. I've had many times that I'm at maybe version 8 or version 9. They go, man, I just can't get that peninsula right. I'd like to go back to the island. Hey, no problem. Let's go back to the island. That was version 3. And you can go back and now save that one, start over, and save that as the current version. So you could make that to number 10 or vice versa. So that works really well. So you save that through. Now, there's a little trick to this too. If your customer is being very indecisive, guess what happens? They start to see that you're on version 10, version 11. And if you're sitting there charging for design fees or however you work your process, this kind of subtly conveys that you've gone through a lot of changes in this. Now, you can also, in the beginning, start telling clients, oh, we make a handful of changes. We usually get to, version 5 or version 6. So if you're at version 8 or 9, you're also kind of telling them that you've gone above and beyond what your typical customer is. And maybe you'll help them with that, kind of dial it back in and keep them under control and keeping that client on the right path. That's my secret to getting the file system set up correctly. So in a nutshell, you're going to save it as a contractor, or if it's a customer name, you just save it as the customer name, and then kitchen 1, 2, or bathroom 1, 2, 3, 4 as you make changes. So you're going to continue through your normal design process doing this. Now, at the time of sale, this is kind of when things change. So what I do is when I get to that point that the customer has finally said, your client has gone, okay, that's it, let's get this thing going. In a perfect world, you would have ordered a door sample and gotten that color figured out a couple of weeks ago. That cabinet vendor will have a brand new door sample show up. That is the dialed in 100% way to do this program. So a couple weeks before you're ready to go, that's the door style they're going with. You order one, gets marked off as a job cost, comes into the price of the cabinetry, but now you've got something for them to approve. But before we do that, you're going to create a new sold file system with the client folder online. You're going to do this within that same file system. So the ABC Construction James Smith Kitchen 1, maybe you're at Kitchen 10. You change that Kitchen 10 to Kitchen James Smith Kitchen Final. That is the one that you're going to be working and that you're going to be ordering the cabinetry from. So there's 2 things you're going to do. One, you're going to create a brand new file folder. That's your paper folder if you do that. Or you're going to create it, and you're going to create it in your online file system that you've got. Now, just as a side note, I don't save my kitchen and bath folders inside 2020. I never do. So I never save anything in that kitchen documents. I always save it to the cloud out there where it's accessible everywhere. And the reason why I do the cloud, and I just want to step aside and mention this for a minute. I worked for a kitchen and bath firm a long time ago when the cloud was brand new, over a decade ago. What happened? And this wasn't even cloud computing at this point. We just had hard drives and systems and servers that we could save things to. Well, I always saved my stuff to the server. I always took and had my laptop with me. Problem was, over the Christmas, New Year's holiday, somebody smashed and grabbed the showroom. busted the front door in, came in, took every laptop that was sitting around. There were 4 or 5 designers that lost every design folder that they ever had on their computer and had to create every single customer from just their paperwork they had at their desk. It was a complete nightmare for them. So if you're not saving into the cloud, it's one of the least expensive things you can do, and you've got something backed up. Here's my rule for kitchen and bath designs. If you don't have it saved in 3 separate locations, it doesn't exist. So keep that in mind. I like to back things up a lot. So make sure you don't lose designs. Always have them backed up. And that way you don't lose things too often. Now, you might have a corrupt file or something like that. That can happen. But with this process that I'm showing you, even if you had a file corrupt, you still have the last changes. So you're always 90% there at any one time. So that's the beauty of that. So let's get back to sold projects. So you're going to go through, save that as a sold folder, and once that's sold, you're good to go. So now you're going to go through and detail that plan out, every little detail on it. You're going to make sure this thing is 100% clean, ready to order. So now you're going to get ready so you can get the sign-offs from the customer. So what do? I go through and take a look at my floor plans and elevations. I clean them up. I make sure that I don't have cabinetry nomenclature covering things up. I don't like to see a base drawer 18 nomenclature over the top of the door style or drawer style in that. So I make sure that those things are all out of the way. It's very clean. And then what do? I print everything as clean as I can to PDF. Now this is where just the basic Adobe program that you purchase, not the free version, but if you just sign up online for the cloud version of this, not much a month for people to use out there, but it will save you and pay for itself. I think it's probably $10 a month. It's not much. But this is the secret to this. So now you're going to go through, print that to PDF, save it in your sold folder, and you're going to open up and edit through Adobe. So what do? I make sure that I've got some blank spaces within this. So what's the first thing I do? I drag over that stamp that I had that had the approval and the date for the consumer or the purchaser to sign off of. Now, I do this on every single page. Then I go through and add the specs from the spec book. I cut those, I snip those, and after I've snipped those that are saved, I drag those onto my floor plans and elevations. So I have a door style on every single page. I have a color on every single page. I've gone through and even to the point of taking pictures of the color sample and cut and snipping them and putting them on that. So I will go through and do that. I put the wood species. I put the wood species description in there. And I do that on every single page of the plan. Now, on the very back, I actually create a couple blank pages back there. Now, this is where I'm going to kind of create my construction notes. This is where I put every molding profile. I actually tell you where on that molding profile, how that's going to be installed in the kitchen. Is that I put the scribe molding, I put the shoe molding, I put the batten molding. Every little piece has a description of where it's going to go. And I go through this on those extra pages in the back that also have sign-offs. So I lay every little detail out. If it's not shown in the picture, guess what? It's going to show in there, hey, it's got 3/4 depth base shelves, modified to full. Whatever you're going to do, it's on there. So now we've got every detail that literally, if you were going to hand this to somebody to build the cabinet or install it, it's all in this document. If you want to put the warranty page on the very back, that's the manufacturer's warranty, feel free. So I'm going to put every little detail on there. Now, this is where it comes down to management of paperwork and management of samples. So I will put my order paperwork that we've just produced. I will have the door sample, and I'll have the color block sample if those are not the same thing. So if you've got a white shaker door and it's a gray shaker you're doing, you can turn around and do this and say, okay, door style approval only. See color block. Consumer, end user, whoever's purchasing this, signs and dates it. Now, the color block, same thing. You're going to have it on the back of that color block. You're going to put approved, and they're going to initial it. You can do this a dozen times with products. Doesn't matter. You don't have to take up a ton of room. But here's the thing that you need to do with this. I quarantine those samples until the cabinetry is delivered. So that door sample is not allowed to leave the building. Now, if somebody wants to glance at it, great. It goes right back. It gets checked out. It goes right back in the quarantine because that is kind of your insurance policy for any confusions. Because I don't care how many times you've done kitchens and baths, there's always that time that the customer goes, was that really the right color? And then you're going to have to pop out there with that approved color sample and that door style and make sure that that is what shows up at the job site. Now, all the other folders that you had, maybe you have, 3 measurements, you've got job notes, you have everything else. That folder goes away for now because that information might confuse your current information. So now from here on out, you're working out of that sold folder. And I like to use like a red folder for sold. That way you know that that folder sitting around is an important folder around the showroom. So if you've got it that way, you're kind of set to go. So I use that sold folder that way. And that's your paper folder that you're running around. And you're going to have all the elevations. You're going to have the cabinet order in there. I place my cabinet order off of signed drawings only. That's the key. So once you've got those signed drawings, that is going to be your reference because that is your contract that you have with your homeowner. Now, everybody's got their own contractual stuff differently, but I want to make sure that within your contract that you have this signed drawings and elevations that have the specs and every little detail on it. Next, I want to make sure that you've got that color sample that's signed, the color block that's signed with everything that covers door style, wood species, edge profile, all those little things. So once you've got that, you're good to go. Then you order the kitchen off of that. You keep those quarantined, and that's going to keep this system going. Now, you will need to have more than one color block sent because every time you order something, you're going to be sitting there and replacing that color block until that comes back. So if you've got a 8-week time before cabinets come up, yeah, that color block and that door sample is not going to leave the building for 8 weeks until that stuff gets in and you don't have any other issues. But what this does is this actually separates your sold paperwork, that's your contract, from the rest of your folders and put the rest of that stuff, put it away. Now, I also put in there appliance spec sheets. Add those into this. So think about all the things that are going into this kitchen. If you're managing the countertops, you're doing the same thing with countertops, color, edge profile, those kind of things. As you go through the process, you do this with all that, and then you have them sign it off. And signing it off means that you've placed the order, you're getting ready to go. So that is the key to this whole process. Now, if you do this, it's really impossible to have a wrong color show up if you're doing your confirmations off of these pages. If you're doing your install off of these pages, you've already got your install paperwork pretty well drawn up, ready to go. It's approved. Now, here's the thing. When I train my installers, and I don't care if they're working for me or if they're somebody else, I never want to see, and this is the rule that you do, and I've done this, I'll go through and take the install copies that are out the job sites, I highlight the signature area where they're signed. And I just put a big rule on a job site. There are no drawings on the job site except ones that have a client signature on them. If they don't have it on there, they're not the real ones. So that is the final rule that you want to keep this going. So this is really simple. I'm sure other people are doing this as well, but this has been my foolproof way to keep all of these drawings from 2020 and keep them in your system and keeping it foolproof, because there's nothing worse than having the wrong door style, the wrong color, or the wrong design get ordered and have it show up at the job site. That can be thousands to tens of thousands of dollars in mistakes, or even more if you got to start over on a kitchen. So this is a very simple way to keep this process moving and to keep it foolproof so those design errors really go out the window. Now, there's other ways to do this as well. I always like to have a second person in my showroom basically go through and double check the order before that cabinet order gets placed. Now, I love to see that. So when that confirmation comes back, have a second set of eyes of a veteran person in there go through and check. Now, what you can do is if you've got a larger showroom, it's great. You can actually team people up so they check each other's stuff. So that way you've got people double checking the order and making sure things are correct. So the designer goes through the order first. They say it's clean, it's 100% ready to go. And then you turn around and say, all right, double check. And that's that second set of eyes. That way somebody that is not assuming the design, it's new to them, they get that second set of eyes going through it. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. I hope this helped you really get things dialed in, because these kind of podcasts are great for talking about how to do this kind of stuff. I'm sure you've got some questions with this stuff, and that's okay. Catch me on Facebook, which is Around the House with Eric G, or you can just type in @ATHKXL, or you can email me at Eric, ERIC, @KXL.com, or hit me up on Instagram or Twitter, anywhere else, and I can try to help you with that. Now, coming up on March 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be doing a virtual showroom webinar. This is for all you people out there using 2020. We're going to talk about modernizing your sales process to close more deals. It's really simple, and it's not expensive to do. So we're going to dive into the virtual showroom a little bit. So I want you to check that out, because we're going to I think a lot of people have actually seen this if you've gone to KBiz or certain things like that. But I tell you what, it has gotten affordable now. And this could actually save you time in your design process. And it's going to let you be more versatile in your showroom. Because I tell you what, showrooms are expensive. And I fully believe that you can actually reduce the size of your showroom and be more nimble with your showroom, with styles changing every single year. So I want to talk about the virtual showroom. So tune in. It's a free webinar with 2020 design. Check that out, March 28th, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So 2020 has it up on their website here, so you can take a look at it there, sign up for it, and I'm sure there'll be a video of it afterwards if you missed this or you're listening to this after March 28th, because I know people listen to this thing all year round, and so this will be something to refer to. Also, if you want me to come in and talk to your design team, we'll talk about that as well. So send me an email at eric@kxl.com. That's ERIC @kxl.com. You can get a hold of me there, and then we will go from there and see if we can set something out to come out and talk to your design team or design teams. That way I can see if I can help reduce those errors and get everybody taken care of. All right, everybody, have a great day. This is Around the House with Eric G. Thanks for listening. See you on Saturday.
Around the House with Eric G is produced by Alpha Media USA in association with Design by Eric G LLC. All rights reserved, copyright 2019. We will be back next week. If you missed part of the show, check out the podcast and all the shows at AroundTheHouseOnline.com. Remember, measure with a micrometer, mark with chalk, and cut with an axe. Thanks for listening to Around the House.
We're all over the radio.
We have some exciting news about the Around the House podcast. Do you want to be an Around the House insider? Our premium membership gives you early access to the weekend podcast, exclusive access to our back catalog of shows, special email access to me, Eric G, with your own home improvement questions with a priority email address, plus exclusive new shows and extended content. Click down into the podcast show notes for the link to the Around the House insider membership for less than the price of a beer at happy hour. Join me for this limited amount of exclusive members. And thanks for listening to Around the House.